Hello. In today's video, I will talk about the Six of Pentacles. So, how I understand this card is, for one, it is the suit of Pentacles. And so, in a regular deck of cards, we're talking about the Six of Diamonds. The Buddha family that I associate with this particular card in this particular suit is Ratna. The element is the earth. The color is yellow or gold. And the basic quality of this energy in general is equanimity. It's got this quality of groundedness. We're talking about the physical world, the physical earth. This card, in its upright position, it is going to represent generosity, giving either to charity or giving to those less fortunate, or at least those less materially fortunate. But it's not just giving, it's giving wisely. And so knowing how, when, and how much to give. So when it's in its upright position, this card is going to speak to that quality. It's going to speak to giving with this wisdom. It's like this generosity mixed with wisdom. And so it's got these scales, so it's like balancing things out. How much do I give? What can I give? What feels correct to give? What can I freely give and still have an open heart? It's going to talk about that kind of a, quality. In its reversed position, this card is going to represent giving too much, possible burnout, like you've given more than you could give, and so then there's this regret or this consequence to that kind of giving, to that kind of generosity, if you will. This particular card is one of the cards that I definitely struggle with in my life. I often give too much. I often give without the wisdom of what my limits are or what is actually comfortable for me to give fully with an open heart. And I sometimes get myself caught up in kind of the neurotic side of generosity where I am giving more than I actually can afford to give. Of course, the result of that is like resentment or, this feeling of poverty, which is also associated with this particular energy where there's the abundance and then the poverty. In the last card, in the 5, we talked about the mendicant who was impoverished and has that mentality of impoverishment. It sometimes comes about because you've given too much or because you haven't understood the abundance around. And so sometimes when this card is in its reversed position, it can represent this kind of you've given too much or you think you've given too much, right? Where you're so attached to what you've given that it's no longer a gift and it's no longer generous. It becomes like this kind of a stingy thing where it's like, I gave and now I am still holding on to it, so I haven't fully given. And so this card can represent that in its reverse position. This card, in its inception, was one of the cards that I went back and forth quite a bit with the giver, trying to get him correct, trying to get him to look right. the two beggars were actually quite easy to come alive for whatever reason. They just kind of like came alive very easily. But the giver, it was really hard, the perspective and the, trying to work with that balance. And so I guess on some level, I was able to relate more with the beggars than I was the giver and his balanced position. I never actually thought that I had this identification more with the beggars than with the quote unquote giver until I talked about it today in this video. However, when I look at it and when I think about what generosity is about, it requires both the acceptance of the gift and the giving of the gift. And in both cases, they are giving. And there is no generosity without both parts. And so I guess in many cases, I can relate a lot to the position of the mendicant or the position of the beggar who is accepting this generosity. And although I often give more than I can, I think that sometimes like that can be this position of the beggar where you have given up so much that you can't even see the resources around you. And so, those are kind of my thoughts on this card, on, this position of generosity and this need for balance, because so easily the giver could become the mendicant if not careful, if not giving wisely, and if giving too much away. So I think that's all I want to say about this card for now. In the next video, I will talk about the 7 of coins. I look forward to sharing that video with you soon. Thank you so much for joining me.